I'm Janet Rogers, and I'm here today at Cheap Joe's, and I'm going to talk about making flesh tones. So we're going to try to get some flesh tones together and then put it onto a portrait, onto a drawing. And the whole idea of this is to stay loose and have fun. So we're going to try to discover flesh tones. And one of the things I'm doing right now is using Aureolin yellow. These are American Journey paints. I'm making a couple of puddles, and you'll see the reasoning behind that. This is all Aureolin that I'm putting out right now. And then I'll put a little up here to make a green puddle. So I put the color out, and then I work with them. Okay, let's take a little permanent rose, and I'm going to mix it with this, the Aureolin, and that'll make like an orangey kind of look. I like to get all my puddles out ready to go so I can see what I want for flesh tones, because I am an intuitive painter. I like to see what happens, so I have to get everything in ingredients. I said today in the workshop, I think it's almost like a stir fry. It's a preparation. You have to have everything cut, ready to go, because it's a fast operation. So we'll put Janet's Violet Rose over there with the Aureolin. That's kind of probably going to be my main flesh tone. But I want to have the Aureolin by itself, and I like to have permanent rose by itself. Put that up here. And I mix those two together, maybe a little bit more permanent rose. And then I have the Aureolin and Janet's Violet Rose together. And then I'm going to make Janet's Violet Rose by itself. These are all American Journey paints, so if you need to try some of these colors, that's what you would want. And now I'm pulling from here. I just want to show you my loading zone. I put pigment in there to make the puddle, and then I pull out a little bit of the paint there. And then I take my painting brush, which I'll probably use this big 7700 Grande round, and I'm going to load it with that and then apply the paint. Okay. This is raw sienna by itself, so I might have some of that by itself, because I always am adjusting color and I never know what I want, what I'm going to have. So I'll take another raw sienna and get a little bit of the permanent rose. So I've got Aureolin, permanent rose, Janet's Violet Rose, and raw sienna, pure color, out of the tube. Then I have a mixture of Aureolin and permanent rose for one mixture, and Janet's Violet Rose and Aureolin for another mixture. That's the main, probably the main flesh tone. And then I also have a mixture of Janet's Violet Rose and raw sienna as a secondary. So it's 3 secondaries, mixtures, and 4 permanent or pure colors, because as I'm painting I want to be able to adjust. So that's my warm colors. That's the basic flesh tones. Then I have cobalt blue, put over here. Cobalt blue. And while I'm at it, I like to, let's have a little cobalt blue up here that I'm going to mix with permanent rose to make a purple. And I think I'll just, for good measure, put some over here in my green puddle. I like Skip's green too, so I'll put some over there. If you want to limit your colors, you don't have to put the green in. You can just make blue and yellow, make green. But I like Skip's green, so I like to add. It's kind of my fun color. I don't even know if I'm going to use it, but I like to have it. Maybe I'll add a little yellow to it. And maybe I'll go with a little Queen Gold Deep. See, I say I'm going to be limited, but I'm really not. Okay, we want to have fun anyway. Okay, and then there's permanent rose that we're going to add to the cobalt blue. So that makes a purple color. And I don't know if I'll need a darker one or not, but I'll put a little bit of ultramarine blue and alizarin up in this area. That makes it a little darker. I have that option. And I may need burnt sienna. I'll just put some of that out there. Well, let me get a little bit more. Well, I had purple on my brush, so let's get a little bit more of that out there. Okay. Well, it looks a little darker, but it doesn't matter. Okay, let's, now for my drop-ins and flesh tones, I'll have, this is sky blue. I'm going to need a little more of that. I never know what I'm going to use, so I have to have these colors out. This is Arctic Ice. You don't need a lot, but you need to be able to pull from there too. So that's why I have these palettes. You have to be able to make a loading zone here. So I'm pulling from there, and then I adjust the value to apply the paint so that it goes on smoother. And if I don't have them out, it'll take too long to make them. So let's start with, let's make a few flesh tone swatches. Pulling from here, I'll use Janet's Violet Rose and the Aureolin, see what I can come up with. So I'm loading, here's the loading zone. I've got my brush is pretty wet. The first load, because it's dry paper, and this is rough paper. So I've got Aureolin and Janet's Violet Rose. Well, it's way too pink. So I add a little bit of Aureolin to it. Maybe I'll add a little orange too. I just like to find, well, that's way too, I must have picked up too much yellow. So that's way too yellow. So we'll go back in with the flesh tone and overwhelm it. That looks a little hot. So I'm going to take Janet's Violet Rose and just lay it on there. Just lay it on so it cools it down a little bit. Okay, and then I'm going to go for the, let's try some sky blue. When I dropped that in, I wanted to make sure it was very clean. So it's still wet. And then what you have is a little bit of movement of color. And let's try another one. Let's try the Janet's Violet Rose and Raw Sienna. I need a little more color, need more Raw Sienna in there. I can see it a little bit more. Okay, we'll just load up, apply the pigment from the brush. So I'm letting it flow right off of the brush. Okay, and I never like flat color, so I'm going to apply some of that Janet's Violet Rose there. I'm going to take some purple even and put that in there. Let's see what happens if I do that. That dulls it down a little bit. How about if I take some sky blue this time and put it in? It's kind of a cooler wash, but it doesn't look too bad. Okay, let's try that again. Oh, way too much, way too much. Let's try some orange. Overwhelm it. Just float it on there. Okay. It takes a while to practice getting this application of paint on. Okay. Maybe I'll try some cobalt blue. Oh, I put it over everything. Well, that doesn't help. So I need to get back to beautiful. Put some Violet Rose over it. Maybe we'll go back with a little orange. You can keep changing this over and over. And it takes a while to get your bearings on it. Let's take a little bit of the Violet Rose and Aureolin. Okay. Okay. I'm gonna, okay. How about Arctic Ice? Maybe if I drop that in. Let's see what that is. It's just playing with color to see how you can get that color to shift a little bit. Put some green in there. If you want to shift the value of the skin tones a little warmer, you could take some raw sienna, put more of that into the flesh tone, so you get a warmer flesh tone. I always like to put the violet rose in, though, no matter what. It seems to load it down. This would be better for a child, probably. So really, you just have to play until you like it. Again, try to put a little blue in it. That's the blue. And you can limit yourself to the Aureolin Permanent Rose and Cobalt Blue if you want to, if you want to just limit it to 3 colors. But I suggest you always make that purple color or lavender color in there. Putting that in, maybe let's get a little blue. Okay. That's, yeah, that gives you a little idea of warming up with the brush. And the other thing you want to do is learn to maybe soften edges, which is one other thing that we might have to face. I'm going to take a break for a minute, and I'll come back with putting the flesh tones on, the portrait.